Giving everyone a second to join, but I'll introduce myself and I'll probably do that again in a second. I am Erin Geiger-Smith, the author of Thank You for Voting. I'm excited to be here on behalf of the ICA today to do a PSA. Will be joined by Maricela Gutiérrez. Hopefully I will see her soon. She's joining. She's with Siren. So I'll give a minute for everybody to log on and also to find Maricela. Always the wait. The wait during the first of Instagram Lives is always so awkward. As you can see, I have my books behind me. It's Thank You for Voting, and then there's a Young Readers edition for ages 8 to 12. So I hope we'll have a good conversation today about voting. You guys all in California have been voting for a while now, so we're coming to the end of your election period. Let's see. Waiting for Maricela. Hi to everyone. I am actually in New York City, so I kind of wish I was in California today. We're getting those, the first of winter, which is not my favorite season. So. I'm looking. I'm excited for us all to learn more about Siren today. It's an amazing organization, which I'm new to learning about, so I can't wait to hear more about their work. Let's see. I don't think I've missed her joining yet. Looking for the Siren handle. Well, I guess I could keep talking to myself. I will say that those of you in California who haven't dropped off your ballot yet, there she is. Yay. There she comes, I think. Waiting. Connecting. Hi!
Hi!
How are you?
Good.
I'm glad to
about
see
that.
you.
I was running from another call meeting type of thing.
I mean, that is the story of everyone's lives. I feel like this, even though we're mostly in our homes, it's still somehow running from meeting to meeting, even if you're never leaving. So we have some more joining us, and I'll give a quick just reintroduction in case too that they want to edit out that awkward part of me just talking to myself at the first. I am Erin Geiger-Smith. I'm the author of Thank You for Voting and Companion Young Readers Edition for ages 8 to 12. And I am here today with Maricela Gutierrez, who is with Siren, and I'm going to let her tell you about her position and the amazing organization.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to end the Friday, right? Going into the Halloween weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ahead of you here in New York, so I'm.
Oh, true. So you're about to hit the Halloween.
I'm on the downside.
But yeah, Maricela Gutierrez, I'm the executive director of Siren. We're an immigrant and refugee rights organization in California, providing legal services, policy advocacy on the local, state, and federal level, community organizing with young people and directly impacted immigrants and adults, and then also the civic engagement work that we're close to the finish line, and we see the light.
That's exciting. Any light at the end of the tunnel these days is just a huge plus. So since
Yes.
we are nearing election day, I was hoping you would tell us a little about what the work you guys have done around voting, and also which geographic area you're working doing outreach there, and any
Hmm.
particular groups that you're really hoping to get to the polls this time.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. So it's been a long campaign. Obviously, we also just wrapped up a census campaign, so we were
Amazing.
doing double work, talking to people about the census and reminding them to vote. But our target community is low propensity voters. We really looked at the Central Valley, which is like the rural area of California, the Central Coast. And then we're in the Silicon Valley, one of our offices. So we're also targeting that area. There's a lot of immigrant Latino, I mean, very diverse actually, immigrant populations there,
Yeah.
and their children who are eligible to vote. And then we targeted young people that are ready to make change, ready to vote, ready to take action. And they have been instrumental in our campaign in getting out the vote, phone banking, canvassing, texting, coming up with some great PSAs, and just being very creative about how they're engaging their community. The young people work actually started in 2017 when the state of California under Secretary Padilla, we passed the pre-register to vote, which is such an exciting opportunity that we're super excited. So we registered tons of 16 and 17-year-olds.
And pre-register means that, just for anyone who doesn't know, if in California, when you turn 16 or 17, and you can tell me the exact days if I say it wrong, but 16 or 17, you can pre-register to vote, so that when the first election after you turn 18 comes around, you're ready to go. And I think it's a wonderful thing. There are no downsides to that. But my understanding was that at first, it was a new thing, and so a lot of people didn't know about it, and a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds you guys needed to find them and tell them what their options were.
And now they're ready to vote, so they're turning out. They've already submitted their ballots. They're turning out to the polls, and so
because the ones that you targeted there in 17 and early 18 they're ready to go. They're now 18.
They're ready to go.
Exciting.
We're really excited. We actually built a voting block out of that, and stayed in touch with them, engaged them in the primaries, have engaged them on issues of DACA and the Supreme Court, and just continued,
those things.
Staying in touch.
What did you find to be the best way to continue to engage with them? Was it text? Was it email? How did you, once you latched on to them, and I mean that in the best possible way, once you wormed your way into their lives, what was the best way to stay there?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we definitely targeted the schools. That was like the captive audience, right? Where we had a lot of young people and did a lot of presentations in their schools about issues they cared about.
Right.
So, know your rights and how to protect their families against like ICE, defunding the police. There was a big, it's a big racial justice movement happening. Right. How immigrant justice and racial justice are interconnected. And just making the connections. Housing, it's such a big issue for these communities, and what's impacting them. And young people were ready to talk about it. They're invested. They're more knowledgeable than us at points.
Right.
And then just, and then out of that, we were registering tons of them. And then after that, texting. For sure, texting is the number one way that we've
So do you kind of, I mean, it sounds like that's what I learned too from my reporting on this, was with young people especially, who quite fairly haven't had enough life experience to know what all the government impacts and does, that really finding those issues that they relate to, and then saying, and the person who holds this office has this power, that's such an important way to do that outreach, is really connect it to, especially local issues are the most important with young people, because they can see immediately what it does.
Most definitely. The local is really what brings it home to them, and we can make that connection easily. And obviously there's a lot of local elections happening before this 2020 election where we were able to engage them. And it's just obvious what's happening around the world for them. I mean, they're active on social media. They're well informed. They see how it's impacting themselves and their communities. And so young people want change, and they're they're going to be a powerhouse in this
Yeah.
election.
So going into this election, I'm feeling really hopeful about young people. So we know that, as you said, they're young people, the 18 to 29-year-old age group, and really, honestly, up to that 44 age group could do a lot better in voting, but especially the 18 to 29 are what we call the low propensity, meaning they don't show up. And so voter turnout, for those who don't know, for that age group in 2016 was only 46%. So that just leaves so many votes on the table. And then if you add in that Latino and Latina voters have a proportional lower turnout rate than white Americans and Black Americans and Asian Americans too. So you guys are really reaching, you have an opportunity to work with a lot of low propensity voters and make that change.
Yeah, and they want to make a statement because, you know, they have family members. You know, many of the young people we work with come from mixed status families, which means that there's people that are undocumented, documented, you know, legal permanent residents, whatever that may be. And so they feel their vote matters even more because they have an opportunity to vote and their family members don't. And then in terms of Latinos, I mean, Latinos is the largest minority electorate that we're going to be seeing. 32 million have the power to vote. And in California, that's 7.9 million, the largest Latino voting electorate also in the whole country. And I think, you know, there's millions that already turned out to the polls. So also that's a good, you know, number to keep track of is how are Latinos turning out. We see them turning out in big numbers, and then young Latinos. I think there's a statistic that a youth turns 18 every 30 seconds.
That's amazing.
That is unheard of. I don't even know how that happens.
I'm a native Texan. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, are we sure those California numbers are bigger than Texas's numbers? But I know that you are right. But Texas also, the Latino and Latina turnout in Texas could have a huge impact on that rate. And Texans are also working really hard to increase that turnout rate. So
I mean, Texas is a huge state, so we're probably neck and neck in numbers, probably with Latino turnout for sure. But yeah, Texas is a huge state. Do you know what's going on there as far as mobilizing
I mean, I'm not on the ground there, so I am reading the news reports like anyone else, and I do because I wrote the voting book. I think probably my Twitter feed is much more full of stats and law professors than many others. So Texas seems to be certainly excited about overall turnout, but still worried about the Latino turnout in the Valley in Texas, which has a huge population. And because that group and that part of the state does vote so Democratic, it's a heavily Democratic part of the state, but it means that they often don't show up they'll show up for primary elections, but don't show up for the national elections or for like presidential elections, because Texas is usually red. And so it's a push and pull. And so I think people are very hopeful that some of the better turnout efforts, and I think those people, your counterparts in Texas who are already on the ground doing the work and have been for a long time, are getting a little more support from national organizations and statewide organizations that they may have lacked before. So people are very hopeful, but still the early numbers look like there might still be not as great as people had hoped. But that said, Texas early voting closes today, but there's still election day to go. You know, there's certainly.
And I love your book. I checked it out this week. And I just really think it's such an instrumental book that young people should be reading, or it should be assigned like in college, and like political science, civic engagement, social studies classes.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, what propelled you to write the book actually?
So before I dove into this for several years, I was a newspaper reporter writing feature stories on all sorts of business trends, tech trends, female entrepreneurs, just all sorts of things. And then before that, I was a legal reporter at Reuters. So in that world, I covered Supreme Court cases, and that necessarily touches on voting rights cases. But after 2016, I just had so many, that election raised so many questions. I mean, many questions, obviously, but you know, I wanted to know what went wrong with polling, and what role had the media played in preparing the electorate to vote. And I thought I knew a lot about the Electoral College, and then I realized I know how it works, but I don't know the history of it. Who are the electors? I had so many basic questions and wanted to figure out a way that I could be part of the conversation, but I didn't ever, like, I'm not, I have friends who cover Congress and are in the halls chasing those Congress people all day, and that's just not, that just never appealed to me. I'm more of a policy person than a chase down politicians person. So it started as wanting to learn more. It began sort of as a research project that I considered to be a part-time job, and then I became obsessed with the topic, and it took over. So really a research project turned into a book.
Wow.
But it was one of those things that I felt like, as a person who went to law school and was a reporter and have always been a voter, I realized how much I still didn't know, and felt like if I didn't know it, then probably a lot of people don't know it, and we could.
Yeah. I mentioned it to some of our.
Like we could do better, and the low turnout rate, especially of young people and these growing minority groups. I just feel like in general, we don't have a representative government if we have so many people who aren't voting. And I feel like the more people who vote, the closer we'll get to it. And I mean, it's maybe sort of optimistic, but I feel like we wouldn't have this huge feeling of division if we really, you know, if we were voting at 85% turnout rate instead of 60. You know, now that we have this huge turnout rate, hopefully this time we'll see if that optimism plays out. But so that was it. I just wanted to know more. And I also felt like all Americans need to know more about our voting history, because we really put a Pollyanna-ish spin on it way too much. And when you know more about the history, I feel like you understand current suppression better.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, and the mechanisms like automatic voter registration, which you guys have in California, and same day registration. I think those are things that all states need to look at and implement in an effective way. And California is a great example. There were huge stumbling blocks to start, but in the end, it registered, you know, more than 1 million people who maybe wouldn't have been on the roll. So
exactly. And with COVID, it's just such an important asset to have, being shelter in place. I know that in California, 7 million, almost 7 million have already voted, and like that's record turnout. I was mentioning that to our community organizer, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be in this talk. Have her break down swing states to us, because California can vote until we're blue in the face."
But
what does that mean? Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
literally blue in the face.
Well, I'll start. I'm happy to do that, and I'll start with my what I've been surprised on this book tour from my bedroom. The question that I get asked the most is, how do I tell friends to vote if they say, you know, I live in a red state or I live in a blue state and my vote doesn't matter? I've been shocked by how that's the top question that I've gotten. And so I'll start, before I break down the swing states, which I'll do, because they are important. I'm not saying they're not. But if you do, those watching probably live in California and are therefore in a blue state, you have to remember that the blue state, the Electoral College, only matters for the presidential race. And that ballot, especially your California ballot, has so many things on it. And so you have to show up and vote all the way down the ballot. Research before what's on it, or vote by mail allows you, of course, to do that as you're voting, which is amazing. But just because you're a blue state, don't use that as an excuse to not show up, because you're voting, you know, for Congress people, you might be voting for mayor, you might be voting for city council, you know, across the state of California. There's a lot of things on that ballot. So that's my, don't skip voting just because you're blue. Swing state wise, it's kind of a crazy year. I mean, people are, throwing in Texas and Georgia as possibilities to turn blue. I will be very surprised if Texas turns blue. I'll be honest. That would be a surprise to me, but it's hard to know with this huge turnout. So we'll see. Even polls have Biden ahead in those states that made the difference last time, in Wisconsin and somewhat in Michigan. So I'm not one who recognizes, of course, that the polls sent many of us thinking in the wrong direction last round. But when you look at the polls closely, the national poll wasn't that off because Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. And it was those state polls that were closer than they should have been. And then, they turned, the margin of error swung only one way.
Yeah.
And we also had a lot of people who decided late last time or switched or changed their mind at the very end. And that doesn't seem to be the case this year. So I think people can feel a little more confident in where the polls are. But all that said, I'm watching Arizona, Florida. If Florida is called early for Biden, I think that will be a huge, that'll change the whole night. Wisconsin, and then because the state that's keeping me up at night as far as if we have any sort of post-election litigation is Pennsylvania, because they are having such prolonged discussions and in the Supreme Court about counting how late mail-in ballots can arrive, even if they're postmarked, how late they can arrive, will they be counted? And so I think that is what could cause some issues if the election's not close.
And I heard people are in lines for hours already in some of these states.
Oh, for sure. Our New York lines have been so long. I actually voted in about 10 minutes, so I just hit it at the exact right time. But I'm definitely an outlier. I went on a rainy Monday at like 1:30, so I think that was the key. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that even those of us who have just been looking at this and living and breathing the polls, everybody has the same information right now. You could just look at what, the people who fully believe in the polls say that things look great for Biden. And then because of 2016, I think everyone feels like, who knows what's going to happen. So I'll be watching.
2016, I think there was like 42% or so didn't turn out to vote that were eligible. I think it was between 18 and 34, 39 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're seeing that already in other states. I know California for sure, there's a big turnout in that age group.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're seeing that in other places that I know you've been traveling a lot.
I think I wish I don't have the latest number, so I wish I did. I won't say it because I don't want to undersell, but the number of first-time voters in that age group is really impressive, and really making people kind of stop and pause and think this could be the time where the 18 to 29 make a big percentage point jump in their level of turnout. I mean, they have plenty of room to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a nationwide trend. Although I also saw that you're seeing a huge number of seniors who are first-time voters.
Yeah.
So first time ever 65 and above showing up. So, that's a thing that you have who knows what that means.
Yeah.
Because, what gets someone out of the house for the very first time ever after they're 65 could be a variety of things with Biden and Trump, that it feels to me that could kind of go either way. But I think the young people vote is going to be, it's very exciting. The mobilization that you and others like you have done with really targeting people who need some encouragement to turn out and need someone to teach them how to vote. I think that's my biggest takeaway from reporting the book, is that we just do a terrible job of teaching people how to vote.
Yeah.
and those for whom it's always been easy, or I grew up in a tiny town and my mom always took me to vote and it took us 10 minutes. And so when I turned 18, I voted because I thought that's what you did.
Yeah.
And it is what you should do, but I didn't realize until I reported this just how lucky it is to have that experience. And especially if you're a first generation American and your parents can't vote, then, you know, you have to teach yourself, or someone has to come along the way and help you do that. And we need to be so much better about making sure everyone is taught how to vote, that you have to register and you have to find your polling place. And in some states you need an ID. And, you know, I think the big shift has been from telling people just vote, 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 to really focusing on those mechanics in a way that should have been happening for a long time, and that some people were doing for a long time, but there's a lot greater focus on that. Yes.
The other strategy that Siren took was really mobilizing that immigrant vote. So new immigrant voters, we process, because we are a legal services organization, we process tons of new citizens that are able to vote. So when you talk about the
I hope I lost you for a minute.
Citizen and is going to be voting in her first election, and we have tons of stories like that of new immigrant voters that are just anxious to vote and exercise their vote. And there's just been some horrific, you know, xenophobic president that we have in place right now that have really are mobilizing immigrants to the polls too. So I think that's something that we shouldn't discount in this election, that
you froze for me. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope everyone can hear you, and then it's just me. You're frozen. There, yeah, you froze for me.
I'm
but
sorry, I got
an
incoming call and I was
But you were
trying
saying I lost you at, you're seeing a lot of mobilization among those who are new citizens, and that you know, current political climate. What I was saying is that
the hate I think the hate, the rhetoric of hate, or the campaign of hate, is working in favor of immigrants and young people turning out to vote. I think that's what's mobilizing people to vote.
Been the opposite, if you've ever had to deal with it as a hurdle of, there's so much ugliness coming at me, I don't even know if I want to participate in the system, or if my participation will make a difference. I mean, is that something that you guys have to deal with as well, or has not been the experience?
I don't know. I think, you know, in 2000, I asked myself what the heck happened in 2016, right? I think that people didn't expect the current political situation that we're living in, that it's just been anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-abortion, Muslim ban. I mean, the list goes on. And I think that's definitely been a wake-up call for young people in the immigrant community that we're working with. And we saw, you know, back in 1999, Prop 209, it was one of the most harshest propositions that really was aimed to discount immigrants in California to have a voice under Governor Wilson. And after that, we just saw a wave of mobilization, organizing, base building, mobilizing people to the polls. And, you know, California made a switch, and people started turning out to the polls. So I think we're going to see something similar in this 2020 election, and that people are really fed up, want change, and it's been a wake-up call for them.
Right. I mean, that's not the way that you want to get somewhere, but if it takes you where you're going, then that's a plus in the end. I also think what's so important, particularly with young people, is that if someone votes in the first election, they're likely to vote in a second, and if they vote in a third, you have a lifetime voter. That's why it's so important to catch these young people. And I hope, like, I'm going to check in with you in 2 years and see if all your brand new 18-year-olds show up for the midterms.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like we know that people do become lifelong voters once they exercise that first time. You know, for the most part, they start keeping active, but I think it's about also engaging them about the issues they care about. You know, we have some great propositions on the ballot. You know, there's
What are some? Tell me some of your that you're excited about this time. That you
I think you know, racial justice is definitely on the ballot in California. You know, starting with like Prop 15, schools communities first. It's going to be allowing to bring more money to especially low-income school districts.
Okay.
And increase funding.
Is that for statewide? Is that a statewide?
Statewide. Yeah, these are all statewide propositions. Just requiring taxation of, you know, the big businesses to pay their part and give back to the community that, you know, makes them strong. And so really bringing that money back to schools, to roads, to community colleges and local governments to just implement more services for people. And then there's Prop 16, which is basically the affirmative action proposition, right? We want to ensure that there's an equal playing field for women, people of color. That was taken away, like I said, by Prop 209 back in 1999 under Governor Wilson. And then Prop 18, we're really excited. It's going to allow 17-year-olds to vote if they're going to be turning 18 in that election, but they can vote.
That's great.
And we're hoping for 16 at some point, but this gets us an inch closer to that.
Right. And it's really
I was 17 in college,
I
so
think that some states do that already. It's one of the things that I also think we don't do a good job of helping people understand is just how different laws are from state to state. And so, you know, now California has pre-registering 16 to 17-year-olds. Other states do that as well. But in Texas, you can only, you know, register a few months before you turn 18. But this idea that 17-year-olds can vote in primaries if they're going to vote be 18 by the general election, that's just common sense. Like, if you should get to choose who you think the candidate is going to be.
Exactly.
And other states already do that, and it works great. You know, I wish that states could do a better job or citizens of states could somehow understand better what other states do that work and really follow the lead of. I really hope that after this election is over, whoever is elected, new representatives, incumbents, can really focus on these voting initiatives that help raise turnout, and just also pull laws into better shape so we don't have all of the craziness if something like a pandemic happens where people are having to shift so much. I mean, luckily California, because you have robust vote by mail, was in a good position. But so many other states are figuring that out on the fly, and figuring an election out on the fly is never the ideal situation. I mean, they've done it. States have done a lot with a little in a little time, and so locally many have done an amazing job, but it's just not the way that you want to do it.
Yeah, and then I wanted to mention also locally, like in San Francisco and Oakland, there's some measures on the ballot to allow young people to vote in local elections.
That's so cool.
And in school board elections, which makes sense. I mean, the school board represents them and the needs of their schools and changes they want to see. So there's some good measures also locally to strengthen voting power for young people too.
And so what would that age be for the
16? It varies by the city, but 16 to allow them to have
exercise. That's great. I'll keep my eye on that. I mean, I think part of what galvanized young people so much, I mean, again, it's an unfortunate reason, but in the lead up to 2018, the school shooting in Parkland, really, you know, students were very fair in pointing out that school safety, I mean, obviously climate change is a huge issue for young people, but in that particular election, school safety was such a focus, and you had these kids galvanizing massive numbers of voters. And, you know, one of the Parkland students that I interviewed for the book was 15. He was years from voting, but it was very obvious how much school safety or the lack of gun safety had, you know, changed his life forever. And so it's, the school board elections are, I also think school board is a great place to start to get 16-year-olds involved. They can learn. It's just easier to learn what you're voting on if you have a reason to be familiar with it. And so,
and I
think
think
both a stake and a reason to learn.
And I think COVID has shown us that there's a lot of holes in our systems, right? School systems, economic systems, healthcare system. if anything, and that there's needs to be more resources placed into assure that we have a safety net and that there's a better education system. I mean, I think young people are really struggling learning online on Zoom. There's a great digital divide that's impacting poor rural communities, no income, low income communities.
Right. Which is something that I think people, especially outside your area, wouldn't expect since you are so close to Silicon Valley. I mean,
It's
it
there.
feels like there
Believe
shouldn't
it.
be a connectivity problem
Right.
there
You
in
would
the
think, right?
connectivity haven of the world.
Exactly.
So,
But it exists, there's
yeah.
still lack of access. Poverty is still very real. And as people are losing their homes, I mean, are they going to pay for Wi-Fi or rent, or put food on their table? Like, that's really the reality that our families are living. Many of the immigrants are essential workers, so they're actually being impacted by COVID-19, but don't have access to healthcare, and they don't also qualify for any COVID relief fund. So there's definitely
Right.
changes that need to happen so that we take care of the people that feed us, that
Right. I
um,
mean,
make this
essential means essential. We
exactly.
need them.
And
Yeah.
make California the fifth largest economy in the world, and the
Right.
number one ag industry. And those are all farm workers. Those are all living in rural areas. They're immigrants, and undocumented immigrants for the most part. And so, how are we going to take care of the people that feed us if they're no longer able to take care of the crops? How are we going to eat?
Right.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a cause and effect to everything.
Yeah. I really think those things are you think they're more obvious when you're living them, but until sometimes we have total tragedies like the coronavirus that really highlight them.
Yeah.
But I mean, hopefully the only positive that could come out of it is a learning experience and seeing these holes and not just seeing them, but fixing them. And in the nearest term, we have to hope that those are really going to mobilize voters and those who vote. It sounds like you. I love that you're feeling 3 days before the election, feeling hopeful about turnout. Part of the world is a really good thing.
I'm definitely feeling the tired, the fatigue, but at the same time, very excited for November 3rd and what's going to come after. And, I don't know what may happen. We may have two people show up on Inauguration Day on January 20th. Two men show up. So now it's just really thinking about what does the next 100 days look like after the election. Organizing around that.
100% agree. I hope that what I really hope is that number one, I hope that the election isn't close, and so we don't have some of these litigation questions. I mean, I think it would truly serve all Americans if we have the clearest of clear answers on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. I do think we all need to be patient. I'm not at all saying we'll have our answer Tuesday night. But then I hope that if, however long it takes, we all give the system time to play out, to count those vote by mail ballots, which just take longer to count in general. And in some states can't start counting those ballots until election day by law.
Yes.
So we just have to sit tight. And then I hope that our best and brightest legal minds are already ready to go. I hope that they're thinking out all of those scenarios. So
but we do have a new Supreme Court justice.
That I just have to get through election day, and then when we have our new facts after election day, then we can calibrate to November till January. But that's my most optimistic self. The other sort of panics internally, but we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely the looming obstruction of justice that we're planning for and people are thinking about. So yeah, you're very right about that. Like, let's wait and see what happens, but it's definitely a possibility, and we definitely now have a new Supreme Court justice.
I know. It's all of this is very it is an odd election season for sure, in that all of these intricacies are weighing on the minds of way more Americans than we usually do, I mean, but yeah, I think, but the thing that solves many, many problems is the highest turnout possible. And at least that part's looking good.
That's building power, going forward, 2021 and looking forward. And I think we we'll have young people really turning out locally, and new immigrant voters and new voters just in general. And
Yeah.
that's what's really exciting.
Well, you know, all the people who build those, fund and build up and train local candidates, their biggest arguing point for focusing there is that local candidates become national candidates, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a,
Exactly.
was the baseball, like minor league baseball. That's how it works in national politics too.
Yep. There's a lot of congressional seats that are going to be filled. So looking forward to that and what that looks like also, you know, in 2021. And
I know it
a lot
never
of great
stops.
people.
That's the other thing. November 3rd will bring a few days before it all starts over again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thanks for chatting with me. I can't wait to hear.
Do you mind sharing your Twitter account before you out loud?
Sure.
For
So
the people
where to follow me on Instagram is at Thank You for Voting. And if you are on Twitter, it's at Erin_GS, ERIN_GS. And yeah, on the Thank You for Voting account, I try to put a mix of, you know, deadlines and hotline numbers, but also some fun stuff. You know, there's no lack of celebrity voting content this year, so I try to include some of the fun ones.
Yeah, I'll have to get a signed copy from you one day.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a great
your way. Yeah,
I'm really excited about that.
In the original book tour plan, I would have hopefully been right near you, but that didn't happen.
Are you going to be in California locally anywhere coming up soon?
I would love to be, but I don't.
Are you know, virtually, I guess, virtually.
But hopefully I will be, and if I am, then
let us know.
Meet in person one day, and
or let us know just so we can promote you.
Thank you.
If you're doing a virtual talk or anything like that.
Maybe so. Maybe the paperback's coming out in June. May we be in a different, more travelable.
And an audio version, you said, right? For kids too?
Yeah, audio version too. It's all there.
Nice.
Yeah, well, good luck making it
through
these last few days. Oh, I didn't ask her. Are you door knocking out there in California?
Yeah, we're canvassing, door knocking. We've hit probably 1,500 homes already.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we're
probably going to. That was the question I most wanted to ask. How, if people want to help you, how can they participate?
They can DM us on Instagram. We have a volunteer form on our website, sirenbayarea.org, and they can just join us. We're going to be phone banking all up into the election day till 8 o'clock, and we're canvassing too. And we're probably going to hit 300,000 voters. That's our goal.
That's so great.
By November 3rd, and
Amazing.
It's been so beautiful to see.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Congratulations on everything. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for writing this great book.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going.
I know. What's next? Gotta get through this election.
Happy Halloween weekend.
Bye.
Take care.
Vote, everybody.
Yes. Show up and vote.